Hello, welcome to No Inches DIY. Here we are at a new project. It's another George Nakashima coffee table, this time made out of the same slice of wood as the other one. Just got my flattening jig now, so hopefully I can do a much better job. So here you can see me just attacking with the flattening jig. I've just got a Diablo, probably a 15-ish millimeter bit on there. I had a bit of trouble with it sliding out and I eventually broke it. And it did leave me with an inconsistent cut. Alright, I think I might have made a rookie error there. As you can see, I've had a bit of trouble with inconsistent depth of cut there. And I think that my blade was sliding out and I wasn't compensating for it. I was just kept cutting deeper and deeper. So hopefully I'll put that back in. I'll do it up a bit tighter. I think there's only about 2 mils of difference between the really deep and the really shallow cuts, so should be rescuable. We're here at my flattening jig, about to have another go on this table. Yesterday I was just hacking into it, actually broke one of these bits, a lesser brand I might add. Broke it, had the thing move about in the, because I was doing really deep cuts. The sawdust was having trouble evacuating. I kept bumping it off the thing it was propped up on and I made a bit of a mess of it. But the difference between the deepest cut and the shallowest cut's only a couple of mil. So I bought this big one and I will go over the whole thing once more with this wider one. Now I'm trying a new brand today. It's a Kiwi brand, so it's probably called Lombide, and I support Kiwi manufacturing. Great for Kiwis to stay in New Zealand. I'm going to suit up, going to set my jig up. I've got a few high bits that I couldn't get to yesterday because I snapped an inferior router bit. So I'll knock those off with this little narrow one and then I'll put the big one on and flatten up. And hopefully that works. I opted to not use any dust extraction on this and I had to hose the whole back of the house, including the trusses on my shed. But I got this first pass done and it looked okay, so I moved on to the bigger piece, the bigger router. So after I took those really high bits off with the narrow blade, I had to go with the wider blade and it turned out quite good. So my next stage of proceedings was to just check how good by just running the belt sander over, and I was reasonably happy with how I went, but I decided the best course of action would be to cut both sides and check which one was best. What I'm going to attempt to do now that I've got my fences reset is probably take about 15 mil off this side, and I might just try from the outset with that wider piece, and then I'll drop it another, well, right down to the bottom as far as it'll go, and that should be enough to get down to that depth. So I'll go one pass this side, get most of that, drop it all the way and try to get the whole thing. So I had a flat surface down on the table, so I didn't have to worry as much about the job piece sliding around on the bench. I was going pretty heavy with this wide router bit and probably taking cuts about 15 mil deep in the deepest parts, but it got through it all right, but I did need to take a second go at it to get the thing level all the way across. So the thought of getting this side perfect has just been too much for me. So I'm going to risk it for the biscuit and take this down another 10 mil so I get rid of this ramp on the edge here. I think rather than adjust my fences, I'm just going to find a piece of MDF to put under there. Found some MDF, it was probably 15 mil, but it's very slippery compared to my rusty bench, so I'm going to have to clamp down. So I'll do one end and then move the clamp. Now this job was hours of work for the router, so I did stop and give it some rest periods, but it did hold up pretty well. It's a hard timber, but not as hard as oak. Alright, so I did swap it around, put the clamp up the other end, have another go at it from the other end. Some of these cuts were quite deep, probably over 15 mil, but the bit did it okay. I did stop and sweep up a few times, got boxes and boxes of sawdust out of it. I've just got that little bit left. I might give the router a chance to cool down. I'll go and get myself a cool drink. But I think overall that side's finishing up a lot better. There's less tear out and I think this side's going to be my face side. There's a bullet I hit. I flushed one here and there was another one in there. So I should have had a better look for those. So I'm pretty much decided that this side is going to be the face side. A little bit went a bit deep there. There's just the slightest amount of flex on those bars, so on those angles, so if you do press down too hard you can get situations like that. So this looks pretty good. What I'll do today is I'll have a little bit of a chip out in here, but then I will tape up these bits, and then from the back I'll fill them with resin, and hopefully that bullet can stay in as a feature. Hopefully this bit here I can fill from the back. Shape on there gives it a good amount of grip, because I don't really want to pin this together. I'm happy for it to stay as is. Okay, I've just realised this floor piece is not very straight either, so I'm going to have to wedge it in this fence setup here and cut both sides, and hopefully that'll turn out alright. Here's the base piece, which I sort of did as an afterthought, so I had to change my fencing and find some innovative way to clamp it in there. It actually, I got one end squared off, then I actually wedged it under the fencing. I did a reasonable job. There's a little bit of a step there in the finishing, but this is the piece that contacts the ground, so it'll be fine. Some of this piece of timber's not real flash, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. I might just pin that back on. And then this whole area, including my other car, is absolutely covered in red dust, so I think I'm going to push everything out onto the lawn and give everything a good old hose down. Alright, what I've done here is I've just taped up all the holes that go right through. I've just put a bit of coil flute and duct tape on there. The duct tape's just to hold it in place while I flip it over so they don't move. This one can leak out the side. Might actually get a big clamp and put that on there. So it says 10 drops for every 30 mil. I figure it's 100 drops for 300 mil. Okay, so this resin pouring stage can be a bit tedious. The combination of coil flute and duct tape worked okay, but probably I'll continue to search for a better combination. I did have a lot of leakage, but it was mostly out of that crack that came all the way out to the side. I did have to have another go at it because I lost 100% of the resin out of that side crack. Okay, sometime later I took the patches off and saw how I went. Obviously the side one was a bit of a disappointment, but the other ones did fill up and did retain most of their resin, but there is a lot of cracks to fill up, so your resin doesn't go as far as you think. Yeah, these ones went okay, no good. So what I'll try to do is reseal this one, pour it again. Here we are at the resin pour second attempt, because this crack that goes to the edge, I couldn't get a good seal on here, so it came out. So this time I've jammed a stick in there, I've taped it all up, and I've mixed, I think there's about 250 mils in there, which is 80 drops of hardener. I've put at least 80 drops in. So I'm going to let this go a little bit more viscous before I pour it in. Waiting for this extra viscosity cost me, because I waited too long and it started to set and it looked like a super ball. It had that same feel about it. I didn't want to waste it, so I just jammed it in the holes and then poured some fresh resin around it, and it seemed to have worked okay. I did get drips, but I just put some drip trays in. I just kept putting the resin that leaked out, I just kept jamming it back in, and eventually we got all the voids filled up. And it was a lot of mucking around, but that's resin for you. The tabletop finishing has yet to come, and I've just got to put the thing together after that, so it should be probably one more day on this project and it should look good. Join me for that.